here with Adam Hadwin. Adam, when I think about your strengths and what you focus on in your game, how do you approach driving? Like, what are some of the pillars that you like to focus on with driving?
Besides keeping it in the fairway?
Right.
Well, that's a good question. That honestly kind of changes a little bit week to week depending on where my swing is at, what I'm working on, that sort of thing. I think, fundamentally, I think that trying to approach the golf ball from the inside and up on it with a driver is pretty key. When that attack angle starts getting down, it gets very hard to control. So I think that would probably be one that I could pick out, one key that I could pick out. I think it's very important to hit up on it.
In general, with your driver's shot. And then when you look at iron shots, I know a little bit different with the arc of the club and where you kind of ground it. What's kind of your overall approach and the strengths you lean on with iron play?
I think for me, it's leaning into playing golf shots. I have a tendency to get my swing in general is very neutral in comparison to a lot of guys. I don't really have, let's call it a stock shot, whether it's a fade or a little draw or something like that. It's my club path and the way that I approach the golf ball ends up being very neutral, and so I kind of get a shot that sort of starts straighter and works away from the center versus starting away from the center, working towards it. And so I'm always working on, sort of picking one or the other so that I have margin for error. Either hitting a left to right shot, aiming left, giving myself room so I've got an area to move it into versus the ball moving away from the flag, and then vice versa.
And we think about, obviously golf's a complicated game, but one of the most complicated shots is the long bunker shot.
Yeah.
For you, what tends to be your approach for that shot?
Man, pray, hope. I think the easiest thing you can do is go up and club. Again, it varies depending on your pin location, but a lot of it is lowering your expectations. Just giving yourself a chance is usually a pretty good shot. But a lot of the time I'll play it very similarly to a greenside bunker shot, but just go up to a gap wedge, pitching wedge. I've hit 9-iron out of the bunker before, 40 yards or so. So
yeah, just not be afraid to take a little more club then.
Yeah, open it up the same way and make the same swing, and it'll come out lower and probably won't stop as fast, but it gives you a chance.
Well, what about with chipping? I know we're talking about variety with bunker shots and distance, but what about with chipping? What tends to be your overall mindset there?
Yeah, I think the biggest thing is keeping your weight forward. That's something that I've learned over these last few years. It hasn't been a strong point of my game, but you got to keep your weight forward. It keeps the center of gravity forward. It keeps you from hitting the chunk and the blade and all the kind of problem shots that people have. Most people that you see try and help the ball in the air. We talk about that, and that is simply a product of, you'll fall back to try and come up, and that's where all the ugly shots come from. I think if the average player can just keep their weight on their left side and kind of turn, very simple, almost like a putting motion, I think they'd be much better off.
Right. And speaking of putting, what tends to be the right attitude for you as you kind of look at your putting and improve, as we're always trying to improve?
Yeah, I think the biggest thing is make sure you take care of the short putts. I don't think people can hit enough putts from inside 5 feet. I think it is very important to see the ball go in the hole on a consistent basis. I think that in itself will lend to greater confidence. The more times that you can bend over and pick it out of the hole, I think the better off you are. And other than that, being very proficient in inside 5 feet, I work on speed control. That's about it. I think that the expectation once you get 10 plus feet, let's say 10 to 20 feet, is very high, and the odds are against you. I think I could be wrong here, but I want to say tour players are 50-50 from 8 feet and in or something. 8 feet is kind of that cutoff, and so anything outside of 8 feet, you've got less than a 50% chance of making. So you're standing there on a 15-footer. Yes, most guys are like, I got to make this. It's really just about, I view it more as, okay, let's just put a good roll on it. And if it does miss, I'm making this game as easy as possible on myself and tapping in. There's no sense in having a 15-footer for birdie and then grinding on a 4-footer for par coming back. So,
well, making a hard-ass game as easy as possible. That's music to my ears.
Correct.
I was going to say, too, just like going through your bag, make, model, and then degrees. Kind of how do you go through your 14 clubs?
I still carry the old Callaway. I think they're the MD5. I'm not 100% on that, but 60 bent to 59, 56 bent to 55, and a 52 bent to 50. And then I go pitching wedge through 5-iron is the TCBs, the Tour Cavity Back, with the Dynamic Gold. I'm honestly not sure the shaft.
Don't worry about the shaft, and
Okay.
and just to make a model of kind of like the longer clubs too.
Yeah.
Don't have to go into too much detail.
Okay, so pitching wedge through 5-iron TCBs. I have a 21-degree driving iron, utility iron from a few years ago, still the old model. I have an 18-degree 2-iron hybrid Callaway UW, which I think is fantastic. 3-wood is the Paradigm 3-wood. Sits at about 15 degrees, give or take. And then I've got the new AI 1 Smoke driver.
At what degree is that?
Sits at right around 11, I think. Something like that.
Gotcha. And I'd be remiss as we wrap up here. I'd be remiss not to ask you about this year's Canadian Open.
Yeah.
What's going to be any mindset change with celebration so you don't get knocked out this time? What's the thought?
I was there. I watched Nick win in Phoenix. I made sure to stay near his family so that they knew I was not of a threat. And we'll maybe just hesitate on rushing the green next time, just a fraction of a second.
Or maybe learned your lesson a little bit, or what's the takeaway?
Yeah, no, definitely. I do not want to relive that moment again, so we'll take an extra few seconds this time and maybe let him get off the green.
Sure, your ribs don't want to relive that either, my friend.
Exactly.
Adam Hadwin, appreciate your time and good luck the rest of the year.
Thank you.
And just to get to know kind of your clubs and kind of your tips for the game, there's 5 quick tips about what are ways that amateurs can get better, things that you do well that amateurs can learn and get better. And when I think about driving, what are some good kind of pillars of driving we should focus on?
I do it a lot if I'm doing a clinic or anything. It's back to the basics. Alignment is something that the pros work on constantly. Alignment, ball position, grip, setup. It seems like, even at the amateur level, it's things that are overlooked that we constantly try to do every day. So it's to the basics. If you can set up properly, you're getting off to a good start, and you can at least set yourself up, no pun intended, to actually hitting a good shot. So that was probably my best advice to start off with.
And then with irons, do you want to have a kind of a different approach there, not so kind of upright on the impact, or what's the focus on irons?
Yeah, the driver's obviously kind of a standalone swing where you want to probably hit up on it with angle of attack. But again, when I go to an amateur player, it's starting with setup, starting on a good position to be able to put your body in a spot where you can actually be successful. So again, you got to put time in it to be able to do it. It's tough if you don't play very often, but I would start with the basics every time with alignment, ball position, grip, and go from there.
What are some good basics for chipping that you've kind of come across?
Yeah, hate to preach the basics again, but again, with starting with alignment, a lot of times you see, anywhere from aiming way left, aiming way right, and it's amazing when I set up amateurs in the right spot, just how the contact is a little bit cleaner. From there, a lot of times amateurs try to get the ball up in the air where the club's going to do all the work for you. So there's certain things. Everyone's a little bit different, but again, if you go back to the basic fundamentals and put yourself in a good spot, it's going to make it a lot easier.
And forgetting amateurs for a minute, but what are things that you really do well on checkpoints for bunker play?
For me, it's you get in there. Every sand is a little bit different for each week, so you get a feel of, if it's firmer sand, you probably it's going to be, you don't have to swing as hard. The speed's not there. If it's a thicker sand, I want a little more bounce to be able to get the ball club through the sand a little easier. So you get a feel of how the week starts, and again, I go back to just getting in there, setting up correctly, and go from there.
putting, obviously a big part of the game, and for you in winning and the couple wins you've had, I'm sure that the putting is something you find some good pillars with, right?
Yeah, I have a mat that kind of sets me up with kind of the arc that I want, with knowing where my face angle is. That's something I do every day. And, I know my ball position. I know kind of my setup. I like to use a mirror to know where my eye line is. So, again, it's the simple stuff, but when you do it every day, your body can get in that spot easily when you're in pressure situations around the golf course. So, again, I kind of do the simple stuff every day and try to ingrain that.
Yeah. Quickly through your bag, like what's your driver and loft angles and all that down the line? What's that?
My driver is 10 degrees. Everything's pretty standard. My lie angles are, I think I'm 1 degree flat with my irons.
And sorry, the make of each club down the line, the 14.
I'm Vokey wedges, Titleist irons at the T100s, and then the 4 irons, I think the T200. I have a TaylorMade 5-wood, and then Titleist driver and 3-wood, and I have the Spider X putter.
What brands of Titleist fairway woods?
That's a good question. It's the older model. I think it's the 2-year model. I'm not great with stuff. If it works, I use it, but I think it's this TSI.
And the model for the driver again? Or
Is the 2-year is the older Titleist model, the TSI 3.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Lastly, I know that the Canadian Open, winning at home, I mean, that's got to be, in these last couple questions, it's got to be really an exciting thing to pull off. What were the emotions like that day, and how much are you looking forward to going back?
Yeah, it was a dream come true winning that type of tournament. One that I'd obviously wanted to peak at, throughout my entire career, to be able to pull it off kind of in that fashion. It's tough to beat, but I'm really excited to get back there, to feel those kind of energy. I'm sure the fans will be amazing, like they always are. But I'm really looking forward to kind of defending that in May.
What was the hardest part about pushing through? I know there would have to probably be some internal pressure, I would think. But for you, what was the hardest part of that Sunday?
Yeah, the fans were so amazing. Ovations walking up the tees to greens. As much as you want to win it for yourself, you want to win it for your country, for the fans that were there. So I think their energy helped pull me through, keep me focused in those points where I needed to be, especially probably in the playoff. But there was so much going on to be able to kind of stay focused was probably my biggest strength that day.
But you did it, though.
Yeah.
I mean, in a playoff, that's a lot of internal, what do you call that, mental stress that you would have put yourself through. I'm sure that that you've got to be proud of the focus that you did pull through, right?
Yeah, absolutely. It's something I can pull back on, and even at the Waste Management this year was definitely experiences I could fall back on and know that I was able to pull through when I needed to. So it can be nothing but good going forward.
Great stuff. Nick Taylor, enjoy defending in Canada again this year.
Thank you. Appreciate it.